Greg Cazillo from Cazillo.com. This past weekend, I had the pleasure of photographing our 1935 Rio fire engine. It's an antique apparatus that was restored a couple of years ago, owned by the Lionville Fire Company, who I am a member of, and we needed some photos of it for an upcoming fundraiser. So, perfect opportunity to get out there. Love the photos. I think they turned out really well, but I wanted to give you kind of my step-by-step of how I kind of went through this and how I did this and each of the things that kind of led up to it. Number one, we had to find a good location. This is one of the older historical buildings in the area, in the historical section of Lionville, Pennsylvania. So that's number one. Number two, we had to find a nice day, of course. It's been warming up here. It's now springtime here in Pennsylvania, and it's starting to warm up, starting to get a little bit nicer, so we're able to get a decent day. Number three, time of day made a big difference. I knew that I was going to need to shoot this in the morning rather than the evening just by seeing the angles of the sun. But I actually used this really cool app, and I forget the name of it. I think it's called Sun Seeker or something like that. Anyway, I'll put a link up to it. Basically, what it does is you find the position of where you want to photograph the building or whatever it is on the map, and it shows you the angle of the sun depending upon the time of year, depending upon the time of day, and it actually works out really good. I've used it a number of times when I'm photographing outside. By using this, I know the angle of the light both on the building that's also going to be hitting the subject, and then I can take that information and say, okay, well, I really want to photograph between, say, 9 and 10 a.m., so let's get over there, get set up around 8 so that we can start moving along. One of the benefits of that is to have the nice blue sky, since we're photographing away from the sun, which I've talked about before in some of my earlier videos. So we got the truck there, we got it all cleaned up, she's looking good, she runs good, and so now I'm starting to look around and starting to figure out, well, what do I want to do, what angle do I like the best? Now, obviously, we don't have any leaves on the trees, or it's very, very early. There really isn't any blooms on the trees yet that are coming out, but that's okay. We still have a little bit of green, which I can pump up a little bit, but I'll probably end up cropping these a bit, so it's not really a big deal. There's actually a parking lot down here to the right side that we were looking at initially. I didn't see enough lines in enough areas that I thought I can get a nicer, clear shot. And so that's why we ended up in this larger lot here. Now, the vehicle, I'd say, is probably 20-some feet long, 22, 24, something like that feet long. So it's not a small vehicle. And so obviously that's going to make a difference. Now, this is my initial shot, and these are the things that I'm looking at. First is this horrible light post right here that does not look antique, that does not look old, and so it would need to go. I would prefer to try and get rid of it in the shot when I'm composing and setting up, rather than having to do it in post. But you can't always do that. And then some other little things, like I might get rid of this light down here, and maybe this little thing that might be a touch distracting. But other than that, I think we're pretty well controlled. Looks pretty good. Maybe do something with this bush if I really wanted to. But it's the time of the year. It's just the way it is. We'll probably end up doing more photos of it as time goes on and over the years. So it's going to just be nice to have a collection of really cool photos of this really awesome antique fire apparatus. So next thing that I'm really thinking about besides position, we kind of guessed my position, figured out where I wanted to be. Then I'm thinking about my aperture. Okay, what do I want my aperture to be? My aperture is going to control the way this image looked the most. So I said, you know what, I'm going to start off at f11, but I'm also going to shoot some with a shallower depth of field at 2.8. So I have 11, 16, and I also have some shots at 2.8. Then the next thought that I had, well, you know what, I shot a photo is actually what I did. Shot this one photo, and I said, okay, I'm going to bracket this, because I looked at my histogram, and my histogram kind of has this data kind of in the middle, and I didn't have any data way over on the right side, which from my histogram and many videos that I like having that data pushed over on that right side. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to bracket this. So I ended up bracketing these, and I did a 7-shot bracket, and I think I did them in a third of a stop difference. Yeah, I think I did a third of a stop difference in between them. Anyway, I probably could have gotten away with only a 5-shot. I ended up putting it on 7. But the first and the last, or these two right here, the under one and the over one, I probably don't need them. There's enough detail in, say, the sky and the blues and the shadows and stuff that I really wanted to pull it out. I could. Since I have them, I might, and this is a big maybe, play with them in an HDR. But as you guys know, I'm not an HDR person. So we'll see how that goes, and I may or may not end up doing that sometime just for S's and giggles, just to have fun. But anyway, 7-shot bracket here, and what I ended up doing was taking those 7, and actually when you take your camera, at least in the some of the Nikons, I don't know about the Canons or the lower end Nikons if they do this, but what I do is I put my camera on that 7-shot burst and then, or 7-shot bracket. And then I put the camera on continuous high, and then I take it and I can hold the shutter down, and it'll take all 7 of those shots very quickly and get them out of the way. Now I am on a tripod, and so that obviously makes it easier. Then when I can bring these photos by doing that quick burst, when I bring them here into Lightroom, I can actually use the auto stack and photo stacking, and then auto stack by capture time, and I set it to like a second or something like that, and it works really good. So I ended up doing that and using that, and there was only one stack that had, instead of 7 and 7, it had 13 and 1. I unstacked those, grabbed the 7, and then 7 and 7, and it worked out just fine. Let's see, what was my next step? Oh, that's what it was. So here I'm shooting my 24-70, and you can really see the difference in the lenses here. And that's actually one of my other points of the video. Here, like, just look at the difference in between these two photos. Now, I know that they're different angles, and there's a lot of different things going on, but lens choice is everything in photography. Which of the lenses are you going to use? What's your zoom position? Do you want to get very close and then shoot a wider shot? Or do you want to back up and then shoot it with a longer lens? That's everything. You really need to start learning that, develop your own style when it comes to that kind of thing, and figure out how you want to do it. This one was shot with a 24-70, and let's find out what my position was. My focal length was a 58mm, and then this one was the 70-200 at 200mm. So that one's obviously a little closer. Now when we get down here to some of these other ones, we didn't quite have that. I was only at, say, 140mm, but that's obviously a vertical rather than a horizontal. So just showing you the difference there in between the two focal lengths for a larger object, and for other things it's going to make a big difference too. So try and pay attention to what lens you're shooting. Don't just use the one that's already on your camera. You might need to switch and use a different one. Next thing, I went across the street. Oh yes, and then I grabbed a ladder and I shot up a little bit higher. So in these last couple of shots, you can really see in between these couple here, these two, you can really see a difference in between the position of the vehicle. Here it's in front of the door. When I'm down lower, I'm actually standing across the street. And then this one, it's obviously lower in the frame, but then it's not touching as much. So I love using little giant ladders. I think they're my favorite ladder. Gets me up just a little bit higher, and they're really nice. And actually in this instance, I ended up only taking the one set of legs like one rung lower, and they're much more stable, especially for a big guy like me to be standing on. And so I really like those little giant ladders for my photography. Lastly, we ended up choosing, got it down to these 7 photos, I guess it is. And then what we're going to end up using is one of these two. And so both of them are awesome. We wanted something a little bit tighter. It's actually going to be used as an award for a rally, which is a fundraiser at our fire company. And so what's going to end up happening is if they want a horizontal photo, we'll use this one here on the left. If they want a vertical, we'll use the one on the right. And what I'll probably end up doing is editing out this curb, or at least getting rid of the green grass that's there that's bothering me. Other than that, though, I think it's pretty good. I really don't have many other edits that I'd like to do to it. If I had to do it over again, I would probably plan out a second location, maybe find a second spot. But like I said, there's always more opportunities that we could have to try it and try and do other things. It's not like the vehicle's going anywhere. We're going to have it forever. It's just a matter of getting somebody to drive it while I photograph it, and that's not that difficult either. So I think that's everything that I wanted to go over. So questions or anything, feel free to ask away as always. Greg Cazillo, Cazillo.com. Thanks, guys. Keep shooting. See you.